That's Personal Portraits. Now, if you are a regular viewer, if you are not, I would like to see an excuse in triplicate, please. If you are a regular viewer here at KTAR.com, you know that we introduce you to people either that are very familiar or folks that you've never met before but lead fascinating lives. The guests that we have now, both very familiar, and you've led a fascinating life. Wouldn't you say, Terry Goddard, that you have led a fascinating life? Mayor of Phoenix, Attorney General, gubernatorial candidate, and Wildcat. Not necessarily in that order.
All of those things.
Hey, if you had won...
And Sun Devil.
If you had won the governor's race against Jan Brewer, how different would Arizona be today?
Well, I think it would be different. I think it would be substantively different in tone, because I wouldn't be on the national stage attacking our Latino population, and I wouldn't be hounding our gay and lesbian fellow citizens and making them feel unwelcome.
You still have to deal with Joe Arpaio, though.
I'd still have to deal with Joe, but frankly, I think as a critic and as an antidote, instead of as a supporter and a booster. And I think that's a huge difference. You know, Joe was a good sheriff, in my opinion. I worked with him when he had Rick Romley as a balance. And here are two conservative Republicans who basically did what government ought to do when it's working, and they watch each other, frankly, instead of becoming a cheer, one being the cheering section for another. That's when things start falling apart.
So what happened to that balance? Because those of us who have been here for a while always talk about the Burton Barr period of time, when Art Hamilton and those people would sit down disagreeing philosophically about a number of things, but being able to sit down and work things out for the benefit of Arizona. Now, we don't hear that because of the imbalance. Is the Paul Johnson concept of the open primary the answer?
I don't think there's an answer. I don't think there's a silver bullet, because democracy ultimately depends on you and me and how we vote.
Do a brief description, by the way, about what Paul is talking about.
Oh, the program, which I support, is that we have essentially people run for office in the primary. Well, there basically would be no partisan primary. You would run for office as a sort of a mass candidate pool, and the voters, independents, Republicans, and Democrats would then choose, and the top two would then run off in the general election. So it might be a Republican against a Democrat, it might be an independent against a Republican, it might be two independents. In other words, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't cull the candidates from one party and another and then have the two parties run against each other.
Well, why wouldn't we still wind up with two people at the top who are in the extreme end of one of the political spectrums?
It could happen, but I don't think it will, because if you have to appeal to the broad base of the electorate, which is what you would do in that type of election, I don't believe you can be an extremist. I don't think the big majority would go for some of the kooky views that we see today articulated in the legislature. I just don't think they can get through a partisan primary, and then because of the disproportionate balance in that district, they can get elected to the legislature. One of the things that I think is very stark about Arizona is that you've got Laddie Kaur, former president of ASU, has done a program called the Arizona We Want. And it's the largest public opinion poll, I think, that's ever been conducted. It started with 7,000 individual respondents, and it's added to every year. And it basically says the people of Arizona want to have a clean and healthy environment. They want to have innovative new industry, and they want to have excellent education. You couldn't get 10 votes for that program in the Arizona legislature, or maybe 10, but not a majority. So there's a big disproportion between our legislators and the general population. And I think the kind of general primary that Paul Johnson is talking about could move us in that direction, to a more moderate centrist state.
You have a terrific idea for the title of a new comic strip, Kooky Views in Arizona, a daily strip.
Hey, you know, the Daily Show has a special segment that is devoted to our state and its politics, and I wish we could put them out of business.
I've never asked you this. The number of times that we've talked through election after election after election and issue after issue, if your father, Sam Goddard, was alive today, former governor of Arizona, and he looked around, what would he think?
Well, Dad was a booster. He loved to see the kind of, he talked about the growth. He was a big promoter of the Central Arizona Project. He believed in Arizona. He was a transplant here, and he believed, like any convert, with incredible passion. So he'd be proud of where we've come. He would be absolutely dismayed at the vitriolic politics that are happening today, that I've been through and that so many others have. And he would basically say, that's not what I raised my son and what I believed in terms of how you conducted yourself in the public eye. In other words, you did it to do the best job you possibly could for the public, and then let whatever happened. He was a terrible person. He didn't get reelected because he didn't pay any attention to that. He wanted, as governor of Arizona, to do a job, and I think he did a very good job. But it wasn't a politically calculating job. And so his type of politician, I don't think exists anymore.
My closing thought is not about your father or his son, but his grandson. 13 years old, your son. Would you right now today, in this summer of 2012, recommend to him that he follow his father professionally?
You mean to become a lawyer? No.
Become a lawyer and become someone who runs for public office?
Well, I think everybody should consider running for public office. I think it's a citizen's duty to at least think about it, not to leave the governance of our country to somebody else, because it's become a spectator sport, but it needs to be a participant sport. So I recommend to Kevin that he should be involved one way or another. Support somebody or do it yourself, or at least be an active observer who makes a knowledgeable choice.
Even with the personal attacks that exist today in media?
Well, he's seen those, and he knows what happens, and I would hope that in a future year, if he's ever a candidate, that kind of rapid fire, destroy all comers, doesn't matter what you say as long as you get it out, is a thing of the past. And the only way that's going to happen, it's like when I talk to junior high kids about cyberbullying, which is a serious problem. It's a little like politics. I say that the only person that's going to solve the problem of cyberbullying are the students themselves. It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be the teachers. It's going to be kids who say, we don't want to see this behavior anymore. And I think that applies to the electorate in the United States. They have to say these negative ads suck. We don't want to see them anymore. They've got to say that a candidate who doesn't build himself up but simply tears down the other guy is not the kind of person that we want to see represent ourselves, represent our best tendencies in our government. And I think we can make that change.
The reason why we invited Terry Goddard to be this personal portrait of Pat's, because he has 207 opinions on virtually everything, and I find it fascinating here on KTAR.com.